Have you ever woken up to someone standing directly over you? What would you do if your landlord kept a sealed door shut in your basement? How did 5 college students deny the existence of the paranormal for over a year? Today we test the believability of the basement whispers. Where we dive into the unknown and the unusual.
And tell you whether or not we find it believable. I'm whispering.
What? Oh, because the basement whispers.
Because it's the basement whispers.
I was so confused.
Yeah, except for up here for us, it's the attic whispers.
Yeah, those can be pretty creepy too.
Yeah, the attic whispers.
Shh. It's Tuesday.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us on this Tuesday. Cannot wait to get into this. This is a listener submission episode.
Love these. Very unique personal stories to
personal
people that aren't
very, it's a good word for this one.
Yeah, personal.
Very personal. This one's actually really personal.
And just a quick plug, if you want your personal creepy encounter or experience on the podcast, head to believingthebizarre.com, go to submit your experience. Please provide as much information as possible. We might get to it a little ways down the road, but we'll have it.
Yeah, we'll have it. We'll cherish it and appreciate it.
Tuck it in at night.
Whisper. We'll take it.
Love you.
You're just whispering today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just happy to have my voice back. I feel like I'm playing around. It's like when you get a new toy or like a new guitar or something. It's like you just want to play with it. And I feel like now that my voice is back, it's like I want to do all the things that I couldn't do with it last week.
Oh, I see.
Talk.
Yeah.
Like say words.
The what did we do last week? The Rendlesham?
Yeah.
That sounded not so bad, though.
It sounded way less bad than I thought it was while we were recording. But that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about the future. Let's talk about some basement whispers.
Yes. So I did find the subject of what we're about to talk about today.
Mm-hmm.
The house.
The house in the basement.
Yeah. And, I didn't see the basement, just the house.
I went and gave it a tour. It made him think that you were going to buy it.
Actually, you know what? I probably could go on that tour because it's not that far away. This takes place in Athens, Ohio.
What?
This takes place at the Ohio University.
Let's go drive there and get a photo of it. Use that for the graphic. Shotgun.
Probably could. But this is someone, saying they got a paranormal experience at Ohio University.
Oh, well then that makes sense. We just had someone recently say that they had an experience there. I think that was on YouTube though. Probably wasn't.
Yeah, it's not the same person.
Is this a Sophia?
No, it's Isabel.
Oh, Isabel. Okay, she put it out there.
She is. For any privacy concern, she said, nah.
No. Tell them all. And just for anyone who doesn't know, if you tell us you don't want your name told, you become a Sophia. Yeah, Sophia is our anonymous alias.
Yes, that we always use.
Always. No matter the gender.
Unless requested for another one, which we've done that too.
Yes, we have.
Yeah.
We keep it funky.
So this takes place in 2020 to 2021.
This is recent.
Yeah, it is really recent. Well, like when we started the podcast.
That's recent.
Yeah. So Isabel lived with her 4 roommates, and this was their senior year in college at Ohio University. Place where my cousin went. Put that on blast. She has not listened. She never will listen.
No support.
So they were Isabel, Heather, Lily, Sydney, and Preston. And they all shared this house. So
the dude's like, I guess I'll live with 4 girls. It's fine.
Maybe that's what he was thinking. Yeah, I don't know. He was probably just excited to start his new year in college.
His last year in college, hopefully.
His last year, yeah. So she said it might be helpful to lay out the house. I'm going to try my best. I'm going to quote her. I don't know if I fully understand the layout. Maybe you'll understand it when I describe it.
Okay.
She said, our house had the same layout on the 2 upper floors, meaning my room was right below Lily's and Preston's room was right below Sydney's.
So this is a 3-story house?
Yes. Well, it's a basement. Basement's below the ground,
Yeah.
one floor, and then the second floor.
So are they saying the second floor is the same as the basement?
I think the second floor is the same as the first floor, right? So,
Okay.
right. So, room, I think.
Okay.
So, technically, the basement lined up with the layout, except it was an open concept. So, excluding one room that was bolted and painted shut, and that lined up with Preston's room and Sydney's room. So, there's this section of the basement that's painted and bolted shut.
Those are the people that didn't get their security deposit back or didn't pay the security deposit, so they threw them in there.
She said she lived on the first floor with Preston, while the other roommates lived on the second floor.
So were two of them in one bedroom then?
Maybe. Yeah. I guess so. No, I don't think so.
What if it's an exact replica? It would kind of have to be, right?
I was very confused about the layout of this house.
That means that the second floor also must have a living room and a kitchen.
I guess so, yeah.
And a bathroom. Well, hopefully there's a bathroom.
Yeah.
Either, whatever. There's two people on the second floor, two people on the bottom, and then there's ghosts in the basement. Got it. I'm there. I'm with you.
All right, so this is an older house.
Sure.
And there are some flaws in the house. Like, you were able to see the basement clearly through holes in the first floor.
I hope their rent was cheap. And it had to be really cheap if it was split 5 ways, unless it was like where we lived, where they made everybody pay individually.
It was probably kind of shitty like that. I think all colleges are kind of like that.
Yeah, they know what they're doing.
Yeah. They got an agenda.
Student housing landlords, the worst.
They also live next to the Southeast Ohio History Center, and in the center are old artifacts from Athens and other areas in Southeast Ohio. Now, perhaps these old connections to the past were the cause for the haunting that beset this house.
All right, so this is the visual I had, and it's not good. I'm picturing like these artifacts in that room in the basement locked away, and then I'm picturing those artifacts in that building nearby, and then I'm picturing that SpongeBob Mr. Krabs where they're like singing to each other from the chop bucket and the Krusty Krab.
Oh no!
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
It was only a split second, but I felt the need to say it.
I appreciate it. Now, the first element of this house that is strange was the room in the basement. The one that was painted and sealed shut. Now, the room doesn't technically have to do with what happened, but maybe it does without anyone really understanding. So maybe there's something in there that was part of this. Preston noticed it first. The, quote, weird room in the basement. It drew his attention, and he decided to show Isabel.
So the weird room, is it the space they're in, or is it the room that's sealed off?
It's the room that's sealed off.
Okay. And is it like it's sealed by the paint, or is it sealed off by other things and then painted over?
It's sealed off by bolts and then painted over.
I gotcha. Okay.
It was especially strange because the landlord never even talked to the students about this room. He just shielded shut and didn't say a word. However, they were able to see in this through the holes in the floor.
Oh, they could see in that room.
They could see into the room, kind of.
Whoa.
Yeah. So, quote, one day we had our friend and her boyfriend over, and they suggested that we shine a light through to see what was in this room.
Oh.
And we were kind of freaked out by what we saw. When we looked inside, we saw old, dusty furniture and some trash. Almost like someone was living there. But that wouldn't be possible.
That's where the landlord lives.
Unless they somehow entered from a tunnel underground, because there was no windows in that room that they could see. Nothing more really came from that. But it sets the tone for the story.
Sure. That would be so much like I don't know anything about the haunting yet, but that would be so much fun because it would be like, it would make the year fun for school where, you shine your light, making up stories late at night, like what could be in there. See, wandering around the house to see if there's any way to sneak in or like windows. I think it would be, if there was no haunting attached to it, it would be a fun little through line throughout the year where it's like, is there any way we can sneak in there or see what's in there? And then it's one of those things, I think when you graduate and everybody moves in their own separate directions, that'll be like that. Hey, remember when we lived in that house with that room that was just like, what do you think was in there?
Yeah, if it is an innocent house where nothing terrible happened.
Yeah, well, I mean, if it's worth being on this podcast, I'm sure that they're going to always be like, hey, remember that time when, and then whatever you're about to tell us.
Yeah, probably. So the summer of 2000, this is not chronological. We're going back in time a little bit.
Okay.
The summer of 2020, 3 of the roommates, Lily, Preston, and Sydney, moved into the house. They were starting their senior year at the Ohio University. The horror, unfortunately, started pretty quickly. Sydney started speaking of dark dreams she was having shortly after they moved in. She called them, quote, demonic. However strange these dreams seemed to be to Sydney, they mostly ignored them. That wasn't until Sydney had a friend come over and stay in their newly moved in house. She stayed for a weekend. Sydney arranged it so that her friend would sleep in the bed while she would sleep on the couch downstairs. After 3 nights of sleeping in Sydney's bed, the friend finally said, quote, hey, weird question, but do you ever get nightmares in your room? I've had one every single night since I've been here. End quote. This particular friend was pretty skeptical of the supernatural, so Sydney did not disclose that she'd be having these dreams almost nightly in that room. She also would wake up with bruises on her body in the shape of handprints.
Ugh.
They claim that they even have photos. I did not see the photos.
Okay.
Somehow, through this pretty solid evidence, the 5 still did not think that their house was haunted.
Well, there's only 3 of them at this point, right?
That's true.
So then when the other 2 were coming, like, yeah, this is going to be great. Like, by the way. Now, my question would be, did their nightmares match? Like, did they have the same type of nightmare, or did they both just coincidentally have bad dreams? You know what I mean? Like, if they both, now she said, quote, demonic. Like, what happened in those dreams? What did she see? Was it a figure that felt demonic? And is there any chance that the friend saw the same thing? That's what I would want to know.
That's true. And it's also kind of less physical evidence, right? It's just dreams. Like, it's not, it's just dreams.
See, it's tough for us. In our situation right now, we pretty much know anything fed to us is kind of like, okay, let me put it this way. I think everything people tell us is, I take it at face value. This is an entertainment podcast. I'm not trying to, we save all this criticism for the end. So I take it at face value, but to a certain degree, if you're telling your story to anyone else, you're prettying it up a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So this isn't really for us, but for them. Like, if I was the first person and I was having these nightmares, right? And you came over and you started having nightmares, the way that I could know whether it was a coincidence or there's something less, the way I would go about it in unbiased ways, I would ask you, or I would write down, okay, I've been having bad dreams too. I'm going to write in my phone what bad dreams I've been having, and I'd put my phone down and I'd be like, okay, you haven't seen what's on my phone. Tell me what you experience. So that way there's no bias. Like, that's the way. Now that's thinking about it very experimenting.
That's very scientific methody.
Yeah, it's trying to eliminate any chance of bias, which at that point, they're probably like, I got Chem AP, no, it's not AP Chem. That's I got Chem 101. I'm taking Psych 101. It's not even my major. What am I doing?
They're seniors. They're like,
but you still have to take some of those fillers at
I
the
guess
end.
so, yeah.
But like that's that would be the way that if I was that scenario, like that's how I would be like, because otherwise it can manipulate. It's like I had a dream about the shadow figure, and I'm like, oh my god, okay. Every night in my dream, I had this dream about this guy wearing a hat, and then that might influence you and affect your memory, where you're like, you know what, he might have been wearing a hat, and then
and then
it's all
a snowball of like yes and
So I mean, it doesn't matter. I don't think we don't know what the dreams were anyways, right?
Know.
But that would be a very interesting way to find out, like, just right off the bat, like, okay, yeah, there is something, because there's real no, unless it was like they just happen to watch The Evil Dead, or something beforehand, like there's no real reason why they would have the same dream.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's a totally fair critique to that, but it is strange that they did have this similar experience in the same place.
Yeah.
So let's move on. So the fall semester has now started, and Isabel and Heather have moved into the home. Sydney is still having her nightmares. The things with Heather's nighttime habits have gotten kind of weird too. Heather started to walk around in her sleep, and she would walk into Sydney's room, and she would stand over her not like you're thinking. She would, quote, like literally in her bed, both legs on either side of Sydney. So she would climb up on the bed and stand with Sydney between her legs.
I don't think I have the balance for that.
She did it asleep though. That's what's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, even if like in my body asleep, I think especially asleep, I wouldn't have the balance for that. I would have punched you, Charlie, when we lived together if I woke up and I saw you.
I know. It's totally fair.
But that's like
I can see that in the bed that I had because I just had a bed on the ground.
yeah. But
like you had a bed in the air.
It was a futon, but
yeah,
it did have the frame beneath it. But did Sydney wake up and see her? She must have, otherwise they wouldn't know about it.
Yeah, they said Sydney would wake up and look at her.
Just punch
her. She would wake up looking at Heather, who was just standing there, and she would have to try to wake her up.
Wow. And you want to do it obviously in a gentle way because you don't want her to fall. Was she looking down at Sydney?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's like being
tap her on the leg and go, hey.
But that's like, that's not just sleepwalking. That's like being aware that there is a person beneath you.
Yeah.
Ugh.
It's weird. It's super weird. Like it's like EBG is kind of weird.
At what point do you lock your door?
That's actually, so this particular horror would happen so much that Sydney ended up locking her door.
And then painting over it. Good luck, Heather.
And Heather would stand outside of it, and then she'd wake up staring at the door.
Wow.
Yeah.
Maybe Heather should lock her own door.
Before this, Heather had no history of sleepwalking in her past. And to add to that, Sydney's room was the farthest from Heather's room. Lily's room was right across the hall, but she always went to Sydney.
Mm. So we got Sydney's room having bad dreams. We got sleepwalking from a person that otherwise typically didn't sleepwalk that went to Sydney's room. And then we got the creepy, weird room in the basement.
Yeah. So still at this point, the students were ignorant to the house being haunted, or they didn't believe it was haunted.
Maybe they were too caught up in their homework.
Maybe.
And their exams.
So I wrote down, I cannot wait to see what convinces them that it is haunted. So now, at this point, they had a party pretty early on for Isabel's birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And they decided to change one of the light bulbs in the back hallway outside of Preston's room to pink.
In honor of her birthday.
And they never changed it back.
Okay.
So, whatever. But so, despite the color, Preston would see these pink lights come on at approximately 3 a.m. most nights.
Just the one light?
Just the one light. He never heard any footsteps or people in the bathroom at that time because his room was by the bathroom.
Just one of those clap lights, and like in the middle of the night, you just hear.
Although he did assume it was Isabel or her boyfriend Brian using the late night toilet.
Mm.
This is why Preston never was concerned when the light came on. Although after they left the house, Isabel told Preston that her and her boyfriend were both heavy-footed and neither of them would turn on the light to keep from waking themselves up more so they can go to sleep easier after. So they didn't turn on the light and you'd hear them coming.
Got you. I wonder, was he up at that time or did it wake him up?
The light?
Yeah.
It seemed like Isabel and Preston were both pretty late. They stayed up pretty late.
Not them. They're not the ones that saw the light, right?
Preston did.
Yeah, I'm asking, do you think Preston was awake at 3 a.m. or was he awakened by this light turning on?
I think he stayed up pretty late anyway.
Okay.
And I like kind of both, you know? It could be both.
I don't know if I would notice unless I was up all the time.
It's pink. I feel like I'd see it because it's pink.
If you were asleep?
If it was bright enough.
Yeah, I don't know. Dude, what would you do? All right. You don't have to dwell on this too much because this is what if. But imagine you're in this house, this scenario, okay? And what would you do if you woke up one day and for whatever reason went down to the basement and the door was just open? But like no one came in, no one came out. It was like you knew that your doors were locked and you went downstairs and it was just open.
Oh.
Isn't that scary?
It's terrible.
That's
really bad.
I would like, as fun as it would be prior, like when we were talking earlier, to want to like sneak in that room or see what was in that room.
Yeah.
If that door opened from within.
That locked door?
Yeah.
That bolted shut door?
Yeah. Like, nope, not going in there.
No.
All right, you can continue.
Okay. So we come to a night where Isabel was home alone, no roommates, no boyfriend. She was truly by herself in the house. She started to hear muffled voices coming from what she thought was the basement. It seemed to be maybe 2 or even 3 voices, definitely a man and a woman. Now, the house was old and it had pretty thin walls, and they did live on the opposite side of a street that housed quite a few bars in the area. And Isabel's room was next to the alleyway where people would often go in and out of.
Okay.
So Isabel decided that hopefully the voices were coming from the alley.
Sure.
She opened the window to look, and to her dismay and disbelief, no one was there. She looked up and down the alley, completely empty. She found herself looking out the window at almost 3 a.m. because she was hearing voices and she saw no one. She was confused but tried just to go back to sleep from that point. So she lay in bed, and she could still hear the horrible, unfamiliar voices in the basement. Now, this was not the last time she would hear the voices at this house.
Do you think that she thought that it was coming from the alleyway, or do you think it was her way of coping with it? Because, I feel like underneath me, I'm not the best at judging where sound is coming from, but I feel like if it was, underneath me basement versus out my window alley, I don't know. I'm not a good judge, though. I'm not the best. So
I think you could tell. I think she was coping.
Okay. I don't know how much we, I want to, okay, so I'm not asking you because you know more than I do, but this is kind of where my mind's at now. If there's any chance that somebody's squatting there or something like that, I wonder if there's any chance they have a TV.
I don't think so.
I don't know.
I don't think so. Preston also heard these voices. He would hear them coming from the basement.
It sounded a lot like Big Bang.
And a laugh track? But even worse than that, he would sometimes hear the voices when the pink light would come on in the hallway.
Ooh.
Now, Preston is a real sleuth because he wanted to know where the voices came from so badly, he would put his ear to the floor to make sure it was coming from the basement.
Okay.
Because he had a better line of sight from the vents.
Where was the hole?
Preston's room.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, no. So he, not just the floor, was he going to that hole and listening?
Yeah.
Oh, that's spooky.
That's really spooky.
Especially if he puts his ear and it gets a little bit louder.
Yeah.
Oh.
Now, Isabel and Preston both heard these voices, but they never fully understood what they were saying. They always heard them, but it was almost like they were muffled. And it's not like they were always asleep when they heard them either. She would hear them when she was on the phone in the late night, and Preston was playing Xbox, and he would hear them coming up to the floor. So, they're awake and conscious.
Yeah.
Now, poor Preston did also hear mysterious, random scratches on his walls randomly in his time living there.
That's like poltergeist, demonic type stuff right there.
That's creepy.
Yeah, I don't like that.
So, I got a big block quote.
Let's hear it.
About the basement. Quote, Sydney would also wake up in the middle of the night to go downstairs and get some water, and she would notice that the basement light would be on with the door fully open. In the morning, she would ask us about who left the light on and why we need to make sure we're turning off that light. And none of us would confess to leaving the light on because we would all make sure we turn it off since we were broke college kids, not trying to pay crazy high electrical bills, which I understand that.
Yeah.
We also wanted to make sure to keep the door closed, not only because the basement was creepy, but because it was cold. So keeping the door closed would help minimize the draft. Sydney, Heather, and Lily would also like to add, because she was talking to them, they'd also like to add that they would like to come upstairs to the faucet being turned on in their bathroom. End quote.
Yeah, these were these are telltale signs.
Yeah, they are.
This is by the book.
This is classically haunted.
Yeah, light turning on, voices, water, the faucet turning on.
Yeah.
That creepy room that no one talks about.
Especially not the landlord.
This house is inspired, I feel many horror movies.
Something else that freaked out, especially Sydney and Heather, was the attic. No real reason. They admit that. Just creepy. And there was an entrance by Sydney's door. Now, toward the end of their last semester in the house, and Isabel of course, was up late again, and it's around 4 a.m., and she started to hear what sounded like furniture moving loudly around in Lily's room. Now, that was strange because, quote, 1, that's a weird time to move furniture, and 2, Lily, Heather, and Sydney normally fell asleep around midnight at the latest, end quote. So to figure out what was happening, she texted the house group chat and asked what was going on, but no one said anything because they were all asleep. So Isabel let it go, but she resolved to ask in the morning. Lily had no idea what she was talking about. She had been asleep by 10 o'clock and slept through the night. The other girls were also asleep. Now, Preston might have been awake, but even if he was, he didn't hear anything. Another oddity put forth by Isabel was, quote, I sometimes would fall asleep and hear what sounded like a man whispering in my ear, which in turn would wake me right back up again because of how real it sounded. This could be completely unrelated and maybe more of a sleep paralysis thing, but it was very freaky, end quote. And I like how she is like questioning all these things too. Like,
yeah, you gotta appreciate that.
Yeah, like she's not just like, it was fully haunted. I still don't ever think they said it's fully haunted. But I mean, at some point.
Would you have left your room to go to Lily's room when you heard the furniture?
Would I, Charles Leopold, do that?
Yeah.
No. Would you?
I wouldn't. I don't know if I would go to her room, but I think, like, okay, I'm not imagining their house. Like, you told me in the house, and I can't imagine their house. I'm imagining our apartment.
Okay.
Which was just 2 hallways, and the end of each hallway was 2 bedrooms right by each other.
Mm-hmm.
And we were on opposite hallways. If, like, let's say it was Alex's room, which would be by Charlie's at one of the other end of the hallways, and if I heard that noise, I would go to the end of the hallway and, like, listen. I would, like, get close to the door to see if it got louder to make sure I was correct. I wouldn't have knocked on the door, or anything like that. Especially if, one answered a group message, I wouldn't have done that. But I would have done it to make sure that the next morning I could be like, no, I went to your door. It was in your room, like just so that way you can kind of present something more than I heard a noise and it might have came. But then again, maybe not. I don't know. Maybe I'd be too scared.
I don't know, man. That's really creepy. Especially if he's like, I was asleep. I don't know what he's talking about.
I don't know. Maybe if it was like all these other things happening prior and it's like, we're almost in the semester. I just need to live. This is like the last 10 minutes of the movie.
Make it through. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's creepy though. That's creepy. Is there any chance of pranking here by anyone, you think?
I don't know. Maybe. They are in college. I just don't see what's funny.
It just makes me think of and I don't know how they did with their classes. It makes me think of the Sault Ste. Marie episode we did.
Yeah.
Where it's like they started they dropped out. One of them didn't finish college. Well, 2 of them didn't finish college. But like, it makes but then we were like, what if it's that one guy? What if it's the roommate that's doing all this stuff? But like,
I can't pick a roommate who it would be.
I don't know.
I feel like Sydney's gotten it the worst so far.
And well, it's mostly because of her room, right?
Yeah.
But you're definitely seeing the parallels, I think, between those episodes.
Yeah.
In this, but it's college friends living
definitely
together.
Made me think about that
in a haunted house potentially.
Yeah.
Or very much so.
Very much so. So I've got one more vignette. This is a quote from Isabel's boyfriend, Brian. Now he didn't live here, but he had his own encounter. So Isabel was FaceTiming Brian while she was writing the submission, and then he brought up his own little encounter. So she said, quote, I was on FaceTime with Brian as I was writing the submission, and he was reminded of the time where he was working out in the basement, and he explained that he felt like he could not wear his headphones because he felt like a presence was there with him, which gave him a very uneasy/unsettled feeling. He said that it felt like there was someone watching him, but he could not see them. He's not the kind of person that is super paranoid about these kinds of things, but it really messed him up to the point where he had to stop his workout permanently, which is saying something because he's very obsessed with weightlifting. So he left the basement, end quote.
I know that feeling to a certain degree, probably definitely not the extent that he's talking about, but there's definitely been time. You know what? Mostly I relate to it in being out and about when I'll listen to podcasts and stuff when I'm walking. And sometimes you'll just get a feeling like maybe there's someone else out there or like something. Yeah. And I'll turn my music off or I'll take the headphones out. It was just like that feeling like I just have this instinct in my gut that I have to be more prepared than I am while listening to something. Yeah. Which is, instinctual and in his case, creepy.
Very creepy.
Also,
he's in the basement.
Great excuse too. Like elliptical, like I can't do it. I'm feeling a presence.
Not today, very scared.
I can't work out tonight. I was going to go to Planet Fitness, but I felt like
I'm just going to eat some pasta.
There was something there, so I'm just going to not work out.
Yeah. So those are the stories of the whispers in the basement whispers. Let's move on to the discussion. Before we get to the discussion, we'd like to stop the episode and thank all our new patrons at the recording of this episode. Barb, Jonathan, Veronica, and Wraith. Thank
Wraith,
you.
that's awesome.
Yeah, thank you all so much.
I say that like I don't see it too. I'm sorry.
Thank you all so much for joining this community that we've built up on Patreon, on Discord. It means so much. And because we've got so many things going on, we'd like to stop and like highlight a couple things.
Yeah.
What's one thing you want to highlight, Tyler?
So this isn't my highlight, but this is something that's been updated because, we put things out and then eventually we update them. For those of you who already are in our Patreon or whether you just join, you know that one of the things you get no matter what tier you join is phone wallpapers. And I just want to let you know that our Watchtower UFO design is now available as a phone wallpaper and the new Bad Juju design. They're both up there in that folder that you should be able to have. And if you can't find it, let us know. We'll message it to you as your phone wallpapers, which you get free, which is awesome.
It's really cool.
But the one thing I do want to highlight is because we're going to be recording it shortly and it's going to be coming out soon for you patrons, is bizarre news. So this is a little bit different than our stories. These aren't story-based elements. Basically, if you go to Google, you search UFOs, Bigfoot, hauntings, if you have your own favorite paranormal sites, sometimes, some guy in Iowa sees a weird red light in the sky. And it's like, okay, we can't really turn that into an episode, but it's being discussed by some news source. That's what bizarre news is all about. It's Charlie and I breaking down like 3, 4, 5 weird news stories, in the moment, recent things, people experiencing ghosts, paranormal things that are happening in space, UFOs, anything like that. It's a fun segment and it gives us an opportunity to discuss these things that otherwise wouldn't really be able to fit into the mold of what one of our episodes have become. So Charlie, what Patreon segment would you like to highlight?
The thing I'm going to highlight is our Netflix watch party. It's such a fun time because we get to watch these movies. A lot of them I've never seen, but I'd say most of them I've never seen. Usually when I'm with Tyler, he gets to watch me scream, which is a good time for him.
Yeah. Charlie's, just a fun fact, Charlie's defense mechanism is being on his phone because it means he doesn't have to look at the TV. So I tell him, phone down.
Yeah, it's true. It is my defense mechanism. I don't like to look at the scary thing. Tyler's like, I don't like to hear the scary thing.
Yeah, so Charlie's covering his eyes and I cover my ears.
I'd rather hear it than see it. Although hearing it's pretty scary too sometimes.
Yeah.
Although I really did enjoy this last movie we just watched. I See You.
I See You. Yeah, It was good.
That was great. And I just like to thank all the people that, come and participate and we get to have this conversation while we're watching because it makes the movie so much better too.
Yeah, we use teleplay, so we're on chat. So we're in real time watching it and chatting about it all together, everyone that joins.
It's a lot of fun. I just wanted to throw that out there. But let's get back to the discussion. So, Tyler, you pointed out already there's a parallel between this episode and the Sault Ste. Marie.
Yes.
That one's scarier.
That one was scarier, and we got more of an insight into how they were dealing with it.
Yeah, this is just kind of like...
But this one's got the basement room.
Yeah.
That's
got stories, though.
I feel like there's the pink light and the basement room. Like, those are the two visuals. One of those two things is going to be the graphic. Just telling you right now.
Yeah. It is the typical haunted house, right? It's like what you think of when you hear a haunted house.
Yeah.
Voices, things moving, whispers.
Lights turning on, faucets turning on, whispers, that one room that immediately, you walk in, you have the little kid carrying the box because they're always moving to the new house. What's in that room? Oh, I don't know. It actually wasn't part of the floor plan. Yeah. I don't know. Don't touch it. It's probably not haunted. Go play with your brother.
And how horror movie is it that they can see part of it?
Oh, I know.
The floors.
And then it's late at night and like there's the shot of like her putting her eye over it.
Yeah.
And then you see like it just looks dark. And then the minute she looks away, the camera's still there. And then you see it move. So you realize the darkness was actually a shadow.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I wonder. I don't know. I feel like I kind of do want to go down to see it. How far is Athens? It's far enough.
It's probably 3 hours. I can look it up.
I do. Don't you kind of want to go see it though?
Well, we wouldn't be able to go inside.
Maybe we could. Go on an open house.
We're a paranormal podcast. You should totally let us inside to see it. It'd be totally cool. Oh, it wants me to do Athens, Georgia. I've been to Athens, Georgia.
Have you?
That's, where UGA is. I I worked with Nolan Smith. I'm name dropping. I've worked with him.
Wow.
He's supposed to be a top 10 draft pick this year.
Oh, wow.
But anyway, let me see how close Athens, Ohio is. 2.5. It's not bad. That's like half a Scared to Death episode, right? Or no, that's half of Astonishing Legends.
Yeah.
It's like half.
Yeah.
Between the drive there and back, we can listen to one episode.
It's true. They do deep dives.
Deep dive. Nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that.
Mm-mm. I don't know. It's just scary. All the stuff she talked about was scary. And they never said like this house was haunted because I realized. I just feel like it's like this slow like combination of things.
Mm-hmm.
And they all just kind of realize how haunted it was.
I wonder if it's one of those things too. It's like when you say something, it is.
Yeah.
You know, like a couple, right? Like if a couple starts talking about like a divorce or something, then the seed is planted and then it becomes what you make of it.
Yeah.
It's like I feel like if you acknowledge this house is haunted, it's like there's no going back.
I wonder if it would have escalated.
Yeah. It's just, even if it doesn't, it makes it more real.
So what was your scariest thing from this? Like what makes you go, ew?
I had a reaction to it. It wasn't, was it the voices? Not the voices. What was it?
Was the girl standing over the other girl?
I don't like that, but I thought there was something I actually had a reaction to and I went, ugh. I can't remember what it was. I don't like the voices. I don't like the voices in the ear. I don't like the scratching.
Yeah, that's terrible. You know what I really don't like? Where Sydney would go down and get water and the light to the basement would be on.
Yeah.
And the door would be open. I hate that. I hate it so much.
Because, it makes you, at what point does it go from paranormal to is there someone in the house? Which is very much like the movie we watched, I See You.
Yeah.
You know, like you got someone frogging, squatting, you know, and if they're living in that space, and, you know, like what if you're
pay
like,
rent, bud?
I know. Hey, let's split this 6 ways. Let's go. No. That would defeat the point of the squatting.
It would.
I think this feels like a haunting. It feels like a haunting you can wrap your arms around because nothing larger than life happens. Like when you were saying she crawled, it wasn't like she didn't just crawl on the bed and stand over me. She actually crawled up the walls and was standing on the ceiling with her her arms bent. And, then it's like, okay, that's really good It's like we were talking last week about the Rendlesham, where it's like, yeah, there was that one source that said there's this huge UFO and it was really entertaining, but then I couldn't find it anywhere else. It's like, okay, that's probably not real.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like everything that you've said for this story makes it look like it's haunted and makes it easy to say it likely could be haunted, but there's nothing like, I think they're lying about that. I think they're fibbing about that. Like everything is within the reality of, okay, it could either be someone squatting, unlikely, or it's just a low key haunting.
Yeah. I was going to also say this, as much as I don't like it, I feel like it's almost like a livable haunting.
It is. Yeah. I mean, the voices suck, but
sleepwalking sucks.
Yeah.
And the dreams suck.
You call this episode the low key haunting.
But I could see it though, like it could be manageable, especially with like sage. Well,
temporarily, like it's a year.
Yeah.
It's great for the landlord because you're always going to get new people living there for like a year. You don't have anyone to commit for
no one's going to stay there for like a year and a half. Like,
no.
And bail.
Yeah, no, I think it's like it's a haunting that's easy to wrap your arms around. That's how I feel about it.
It's just it's almost like a Hallmark kind of haunting.
I don't know about that. Well, I have to ask producer Ben. He's big on the Hallmark.
Yeah. But where do you go on the believability scale?
Oh, believable. Yeah, I think it's I would have to either believe, I don't think they're lying. I've already said this. I don't go into these accepting that people are just fibbing to us. There have to be some crazy off the wall things or just details that didn't line up that they didn't realize that didn't line up.
Or what about the fact that 5 of them have come together and they all agree on what happened? There's no like disruptions or like
discrepancies. It's weird that no one else heard the furniture moving.
Yeah.
And I like the only thing that I was trying to find a little bit of like was that a detail that competes with something you said earlier is I think it was Isabel's quote where she's like, we always go to bed by 12. But then there were some stories or scenarios where I feel like they were up at 3 or 4. But I think that was different roommates. And
well, Preston and Isabel, they stayed up later. The other 3, they went to bed by noon, by midnight.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I'm going to keep using the phrase. It feels like a haunting you can wrap your arms around. Like it feels like either someone is in that house messing with them, and I think with 5 people living there, even though 3 of them go to sleep early-ish, and if there was a seemingly way out of that hidden room, and maybe there is and they just couldn't find it, then I would be like, okay, maybe there's someone literally in there, because then there's the TV, they're using the faucet, they're turning light, and they're just being sneaky about it, which I think those people's lives sometimes are scarier than the people living in the haunted house, because not getting caught, like squatting is more terrified to me than being in a haunted house. This kind of haunted house. But I don't think it's somebody in there. I think it's just a manageable but spooky haunted house.
I agree. I go with believable as well. Thank you for joining us on this episode of this incredible listener submission. And again, if you like this episode and you want to get your own story onto the podcast, please go to our website, believingthebizarre.com. Go to submit your experience. There's a form you fill out. Don't be intimidated by the box size. Write as much as you want,
please,
and then send it to us, and we'll probably send you confirmation. And
or not, but we'll get it. We'll get it.
Yeah, we'll get it.
And if there's anything you want to add on later, our email is believingthebizarre@gmail.com. We've had multiple people be like, "Hey, I forgot to add this." Like, I'll be honest, there is enough time between when you submit to likely whenever you think of you forgot something, hit us up. Be like, hey, my name is this. I submitted my story. Can you add it to it? Or here's this, or here's a photo. You know, anything that comes to you later. It's not like set in stone. You know, get your story out there, get it submitted in so we can add it, because we do kind of go in order of when we receive them. But we love listener submissions. There's just that personal touch. It's creepy, and it's like everyone knows the Mothmans, everyone knows the Jersey Devils, but not everyone knows that person living in Boston, that person living in Athens, Ohio, by the school. So it's cool to tell the stories that isn't all over every other podcast, every website, blog. Like, these are the ones that I like. You don't know what's going to happen next. I love it.
I do also love that. It just feels like it's more personal, because it is. It's like when we tell our stories, like, I know they happen. It happened to me.
I was there.
Yeah.
And I always appreciate, and you highlighted on this episode, when they go a little bit like step back. Like, it could have been this, it could have been this, but you know what? This is what I experienced, and this is what I think it was. I can't prove that, but hey, I'm telling you my story. This is what it is. Do with it what you will.
Yeah. And if you enjoyed this episode particularly, and you want to tell us, please feel free to go to Apple and leave a review and 5 stars. Or if you're listening on Spotify, you probably are.
Yeah.
You can still leave a 5-star review. That would mean so much to Tyler. If you want to say, oh man, that's great, somewhere.
Oh man.
We appreciate it.
That's great. And also, if you are the type of person that enjoys shopping, like myself, Charlie's not a shopper. That's okay. It's good for your wallet. We do have merch. We got hats. We got hoodies. We got t-shirts. Like we said, I think it was last week, we just dropped the Bad Juju design. So go check that out. Duffel bags, posters, prints, tapestries, mugs, a bunch of cool merch out there. We have some really good designers. We're very, very lucky to have them. So go check that out, and I think you'll find something you like. But with that said, we appreciate you listening so much. As always, I'm Tyler.
And I'm Charlie.
And catch us next week on Believing the Bizarre,
a podcast as bizarre as you are.